Hey, this is Amy from the Bureau of Tactical Imagination, and I want to talk to you over the next 3 videos about some important perspectives about the branding process for any small business operating particularly in the digital realm, in the online realm. But really this could apply to any small business that is embarking on a branding project. So in all of the work that I do with my customers and my students, I teach that the branding process is made of 3 central elements, and those elements, or phases rather, those phases are the listening phase, the ideation phase, and the communication phase. So each of these 3 videos is going to cover one of those phases, and today we're going to start with listening. So there are 3 things that we listen to when we begin a branding process. The first is you, the creator of the business, the CEO, the founder, whoever it is that is speaking for the business and putting it out there into the world, the person who's responsible for the message and the brand, right? Whether it's just you or if you're heading a team. It could also be the creative director and marketing director of the business could be a part of that. But really it's the vision of the founder that we start with. The second thing we listen to is the work itself. The work itself as a separate entity from the founder. And the work itself encompasses the vision of the work. What is the world that this work is making more possible? It covers the value, like listening for what the true values are that are driving this work, identifying those, right? The voice of the work, listening for what is already happening, because from the minute you start running a business, even if you haven't done a branding project, you are doing inherent branding. Every time you speak, every time you put out an image, every time you promote something, every decision you make about the structure of your business and how it operates is also branding. You know, it's the place where the either implicit or explicit values and vision and ideas of the business are made tangible for people on the outside. Listening to your work is also very much about listening to your clients, your customers, your community, your collaborators, and challenging your own assumptions and understanding who they are and how they're interacting with your work, how they're interacting with that area of their lives or of culture or of business that is related to your work. So there's an element of research in this piece. And then the third thing we're listening to is the culture, like the larger cultural context that you're doing your work in. So those are the 3 things we're listening to in phase 1, the listen phase. And of course, there's in the course that I teach about this, there are several lessons and assignments and units and conversations that we have in the class as a group that help you kind of knit all these different pieces together in the branding process. But for this video, I just wanted to give you one little piece of it that you can take away and that you can work on right now. And that's from the part that's about listening to you. So one of the first things I have people do, and this is relevant for people, even if your business is not about you per se, even if you're not the face of your business, if you're standing solidly in your voice, in your vision, in the way you most easily and powerfully communicate and create personally, then whatever decisions you make about your brand message gets delivered with in a more communicative and creative way if you're standing powerfully in your voice while you do it. Even if your message is very client focused, which most of our messages have to be. So I want to ask you a question right now, and this is great for journaling. It's also great for Pinterest boarding or playing visually with. And your question is, as you think about your whole life up till now, from when you were born, and start early, start as early as you can in your memory from when you're as young as you can think of. Who were you as a creative being? And so this could be related to the arts, but it's really about like, how have you always liked to communicate and do things in the world with your hands and your brain and your heart and your body? Really think about, were you the kid who was directing the neighborhood theater productions? Were you the kid who loved to do math? Were you a kid who liked to very quietly engage in personal creative projects? Were you always really interested in food? Like kind of what captured you and drove what you wanted to do with the way that you played and explored the world as a young person. And write for a while, write for 15 minutes, a half an hour, move all the way through your life. How did your ways of communicating and just sort of being in the world and expressing yourself look in your early teens and your mid-teens and into your adult years? And all through your adult years, where have you felt most alive and engaged in terms of your creativity? And I use the word creativity very loosely, right? Like this does not have to be about drawing or painting or singing per se. It could. So that's a really important thing to explore. And often when I work with people, they have memories and start to come up with things that they hadn't really paid that much attention to. And there's a second, and those things like that you don't pay much attention to because it's just so much a part of who you are actually very relevant to how you show up and present your business to the world. And if you can tap into the strengths at the core of those as you craft your brand for the world, it can be really a powerful thing. And it can also make your brand creation much more fun and easy for you. The second very related question is, who have you been throughout your life as a cultural receiver? In other words, what have your influences been from your very earliest years? What excited you and interested you? And think about books, movies, music, traditions, ceremony, cultural things in your family or in the subcultures that you're a part of. What have been the things that from the outside world, that first question is about inside out. This question is outside in. From the outside world, what captured you, supported you, interested you, drew you in all through the years? And this is another one where once you get started, don't just write for 5 minutes and then be done. Write for 5 minutes and then go back and think of more and go a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. These questions, once you've put a bunch of stuff out there in your journal or talked it out to a friend or colleague, you can start to see that there are through lines, there are threads that weave through all of these things. So that even if the things you've been interested in through the years, the influences you've had through the years, the things you've been interested in doing through the years, even if those seem very disparate and unrelated, there's always a strong connection. And this has something very powerfully to do with who you are as a creator and a communicator. And this is the baseline where we start with branding. The founder of the business needs to be rooted in who they are as a creator and a communicator, because that's where you're going to be able to communicate the vision of your work most clearly for others to hear. And then as your work becomes more client focused, as branding has to be, you are able to reflect to your clients and to your potential customers and students and whoever these folks are, what you hear from them and what you learn about them, because that's another big part of the listening phase. You're able to speak really directly to them in language that they can hear and understand, but you're doing it as you. You're not doing it as a faceless generic business. So this is like the seed of what's going to make your brand not just different from everyone else's, because that's really important, standing out in these kind of noisy environments, not just different, but truly original and real, right? Truly original and believable because it's so unmistakably your business, this business that has this kind of spirit of its own. So I hope you can use this and find it useful to do that kind of writing and thinking, and then get in conversation with someone about it. Someone you know, someone who knows you. Talk through all these different pieces. And I'll give you one example. I had a client who kind of skipped over, but mentioned that she was really obsessed with the TV show Saved by the Bell when she was younger. And she thought of it as trivial, you know, like there were other parts of her story that seemed more important. But I went back and asked her what it was about the show. And this is a good question to, you know, as you list these things, what was it about it, you think, that made it so interesting to you? And she ended up having a really deep kind of insight about the way the characters related to each other and the way she related to them as a viewer in terms of how she understands human relationships and how they operate. And suddenly she could see what a direct thread there was between what she responded to in the show and the way she works with her clients as a coach. And that started clicking a bunch of other things into place too, and ended up giving her a lot of clarity about the way she communicates about her work and ideas about ways that she could use cultural forms and art forms to talk about it. So that's a little bit of a deep dive into just one aspect of the listening phase. And there are many others, but I hope you can start with this and use it somehow. And I'd love to hear what you learn. So get in touch, you know, put it in the comments and enjoy.